all 6 of you have been invited to compete against each other to make the best possible video game in 3 weeks for an enormous prize pool of $10,000.
I'm coming for that cash prize.
I'm super excited for the competition.
I'm not very confident.
Am I ready? No. Am I excited? Yes.
I am ready to win.
I'm really not. This is going to be awesome.
Each week, 5 judges will play, analyze, and dissect your games and decide which 2 devs should get brutally eliminated. The others will pass on to the next week of the competition. There are 6 of you at the moment, but only 1 of you will win $10,000. Is out, but there's a tie between and there's a draw.
What?
The winner of the second Blackthornprod competition goes to... You'll all need to base your game on a theme, and the theme for this competition is Memento Mori, which in Latin means remember you are mortal.
Memento Mori, that's a pretty good theme, not gonna lie.
What the hell does that mean?
I'm not a scientist. I don't know what that means, you know? But I looked it up. It means remember death. Spooky, you know?
It does sound like a great theme for a horror game, or maybe something death related. What is death even? Like, why must we die?
I really like the theme. It's like surprisingly deep. Like there's a lot of different ways you could go with it and a lot of different imagery that's associated with that. I think it's going to be really cool.
You can definitely do a lot with it, but I mean, it's just asking to be a horror game. I was gonna do a horror game anyways. I don't know if I'm gonna win or not, but I probably won't.
Okay, so sit back and enjoy watching these incredible devs cook up some absolutely insane video games. Let's start things off with a developer from Moonleaf Studio, Iridas.
The Memento Mori theme inspired me to make a game where you need to die in order to progress. The first thing that I did was open up Milanote and write down all of the ideas I had for the project.
That's right guys, Milanote is the go-to tool to organize all of your game projects. They helped make this high-stakes game dev competition possible, and not only that, but they've gifted all creatives with a beautiful and extremely easy to use tool that we're using to plan our next projects. You can choose a template, for example the game design brainstorming one, and add images, arrows, to-do lists, text, custom doodles, links, and so much more. It's a stunning way to map out what's on your mind. You can even invite your teammates to gather feedback and collaborate in real time. Cherry on the cake, Milanote is available for free with no time limit, and the link is in the description. With that said, back to Iridas from Moonleaf Studio.
During the brainstorm, I decided to make an atmospheric horror medieval game where the player has to control prisoners who are attempting to escape the prison through underground tunnels. Then, I focused on creating the first-person melee combat, where no beings were harmed during the process, of course, inventory to pick up and switch between different weapons, as well as weapon drops on death. After that, I made it so that there are 5 prisoners in total that you can play as. Each prisoner will have a set starting weapon, and whenever you die with one character, a tombstone appears and you drop your currently held weapons, which can be used and picked up during your next playthrough. 3 weapon types will be used to fight against specific monsters. Sword is strong against undead, club against skeletons, and a hay fork against the rats. This means that in order to beat all of the enemies, the player will have to kill his character to gather as many different weapons as he can, or just struggle very hard with one weapon instead. When you pick up your comrade's weapon, you get reminded that death is inevitable and you will most likely perish in one way or another, which makes the prisoner extremely terrified and provides him with a random debuff such as sickness, breath shortness, or even dizziness. I spent a lot of time building the atmosphere and sound effects because I really think that those are the core elements that make horror games great, and hopefully I will get to the next round where I plan to add way more exploration possibilities, proper ending, and even new debuffs such as hallucinations.
After researching the theme on Monday, I had no idea what to make. I feel like Memento Mori kinda implies something dark, like a horror game. In an attempt to stand out, I wanted to look a bit beyond that and make something about both life and death. Since I had no plan yet, I first made a player character featuring the Memento Mori hourglass. For some reason, making the character got my ideas flowing and I was able to plan out most of the game on Tuesday. In my game you play as a young spirit wizard who controls life in a mystical mushroom forest. You can find spirits or take them from creatures and use them to create new creatures. It's like a combination of Spore, Pokemon and a short hike. The first thing I did after modeling and programming the character was to decide on a look for the game. I went with cartoony graphics and bulky pixels, like in a short hike, and a pink and purple color scheme to make it feel mystical. Next up, I dusted off my procedural animation Centipede to use as a base for the creature system. I made a system that takes in a creature blueprint and dynamically creates the creature, allowing for different sizes and body parts. Before continuing programming, I decided to make some new parts and spawn random creatures everywhere, which looks cool but also slightly horrifying. I then worked all Friday to design and implement a spirit system. Spirits are like building blocks for life, and all creatures are made out of a combination of spirits. When you defeat a creature, it drops spirits matching its parts, so you can use them to create new creatures. I also built a user interface to hold the collected spirits and allow for creation of new creatures. Finally, on Saturday I did some bug fixing and added a tutorial. I also implemented a small quest where you have to build a particular creature for an NPC. Currently he just shows a smiley face and that's it. If I get to the next round, I will implement proper progression with a new area. There's a lot of other stuff I want to add as well, and I'm really hoping my project gets picked, so I have a good excuse to continue making this game.
Imagine receiving a call from your doctor, and they say, hey man, you only have 1 day to live, dude, so that sucks. What would you do? Would you just sit on your butt all day watching frickin' ting-tongs? No, you'd live your life to the fullest. Well, that's the exact idea for my game. It's your final day on Earth, and you have to complete all your bucket list items before you die. In this whimsical adventure, players navigate a vibrant open world filled with quirky characters and unexpected challenges. And you might be thinking, oh, this seems like a very generic adventure story game. The catch is, you control your character using active ragdoll physics, adding a delightful layer of chaos and maybe a little bit of funny moments too. You can jump, climb, fight, do sick flips, and interact with the locals to learn their stories and uncover town gossip.
I was taking a walk up the mountain earlier, and when I got home, my ring was gone.
Each item on your bucket list presents a different obstacle to overcome. Maybe you want to dunk a basketball like LeBron James, but there's no way your little ass is getting up to that hoop. However, with some creative problem solving and perhaps the aid of a trampoline, anything is possible. Maybe you want to get engaged, but you don't have a partner. Well, you better find an engagement ring and try to hoop it over the next person you see. I know it sounds confusing, but essentially the goal for the game is a combination of Goat Simulator and Human Fall Flat. In one moment, you might be 3D platforming your way up a mountain, and in another, you might be fighting in a boxing match. I honestly see so much potential in this game, and if I were to continue, this is what I'd want to do. Add more NPCs that will say funny stuff and contribute to the overarching story and goals. Ideally, the game will be able to be played in a sandbox, so I'd like to add more physics objects to play with, more interesting physics-based puzzles, a larger open world with multiple regions, different buildings you can go into, more items like swords, guns, a skateboard, all that stuff. And there are definitely some bugs, so if you find one, that's on me. And honestly, I've built a really good base to work with here, and this is only the tip of the iceberg, as they say. So viewers, you should vote Bewky to stay in the challenge and keep going.
It's not a vote thing.
Oh, what's up?
It's not a vote thing.
It's not a vote thing?
It's the judges.
It's just the judges?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Keep me in the challenge, please. Please, I won't let you down. I promise.
Welcome to the Catacombs. Your task is simple. You seek eternal life, but someone wants to stop you. The first time I ever heard the phrase memento mori, it was in A Series of Unfortunate Events. So I modeled the main character kind of after Klaus from the books. You know, glasses, not very strong or decisive. So because I chose to give him all hand-drawn animations, just filling out his kit took most of the first day. So here's the kit. As a fancy lad, he has a cane that he can use to reflect projectiles, but the direct damage is a joke. He can also catch items and throw them at enemies, and fitting through tight spaces is possible with crawling, but it's slower. Which is a problem because the entire time the oil in your lantern is depleting and your light shrinks. You can only replenish it through combat. But the worst part is that when Grim is close enough, he sucks away your light even faster, and he's always getting closer. At the bottom, you find Grim's heart, and if you can reunite them, you get a prize. It's an angry Grim Reaper! If you can manage to defeat him, you get to decide your own fate. Now, what's here is just one level, but in keeping with the death theme, I think a roguelike structure would be very appropriate, which is why I plan to implement it. Along the way, you'd fight other bosses, all of whom would be the spirits of people who sought immortality in the usual ways. You know, glory, wealth, science, children, etc. I'd also add relics that give buffs and debuffs, different items that you could hold and use, a ghostly shopkeeper, and of course, more regions. So, if you'd like to see that, let me through to round 2. please.
Guys, we've just opened up the Game Dev Rockets Academy. Now, with this membership, you'll gain access to a course that will teach you everything you need to know to make video games full-time. You'll start by learning the basics of programming and gradually learn step by step by making various game projects all the way up until you make your own large FPS video game which you'll put on Steam. Now here is where things get even more exciting. Every single week we're going to be going on live interactive lessons and covering specific game dev topics from game art and rapid prototyping to programming AI and VR. And we're even paying top dog industry professionals to go on live calls with our members, and they're to be sharing their valuable skills and knowledge with our students. To put our community members' skills to the test, at the end of every month, we'll be hosting members-only game creation competitions. And not only that, but there will also be demo days where we give the spotlight to our members who will get to showcase their latest game projects to the entire community. So to recap, Game Dev Rockets Academy is a monthly membership that not only offers you a massive course that will teach you everything you need to know to start making video games and selling them, but also the community you need to support your passion, give you valuable feedback, and inspire you. You might even find the perfect team member that will join you on your next game project. So join now with the link in the description. With that said, let's get back to our quarterfinals.
Memento Mori means remember you must die, or even remember death. So I thought, what if you actually had to remember that you were dying? What if you're a scientist doing some shady research on a virus that just happened to get leaked into the entire facility, and now you are infected and you need to keep shoving injections to temporarily tame the virus while looking for the actual cure and trying not to get murdered by humanoid monsters? Being one of the scientists also means that you have to be the one mixing the vaccines. So I made these adorable looking vials and these adorable looking enemies. You can kill the enemies to get vials and then shove them into this machine to make the vaccines. There are 3 types of vaccines, and each of them requires a specific recipe, which you can see in this handy list, which also has this mysterious recipe that will only be revealed if I go to the next phase of the competition. A game like this really calls for a Resident Evil type inventory, which this game really needed because the UI is a giant mess, and I hope the judges can understand everything that is happening. If I do make it to the next phase, aside from the secret recipe, I would add a pause button, which seems crucial for this game, and probably a run button as well. Also, this enemy only takes away health, so it would be interesting to have an enemy that could affect your infection levels. I would also add weapon reloading and probably another weapon. Oh, and I also made a main menu and an intro with some lore. I called the game Immune Heart.
Hi everyone, I'm Strompy, a 16 years old YouTuber who loves creating video games, and today I'm going to introduce you to Grimalkin, The Last Shadow. And the idea is to create a super fast combat game with a horror and a roguelike theme. Unfortunately, time has been rather short for me due to numerous exams. To do this, I started by creating a player controller allowing the player to perform all these actions. Then I concentrated on the game feel, adding lots of camera effects, post-processing effects, and so on. Then I downloaded this ARM model from Sketchfab and animated it. I find this world pretty cool. But then I had to move on to the worst stage of the project, AI. Oh no! This was the longest step for me, but after days of work, I had this night. And after all that, I had already reached the last day. I told you I didn't have much time. But it doesn't matter, because I rushed to add these new things: dash, new enemies, grappling hook, teleportable arrow, spectrum mode to be faster and stronger, and finally, the HQ. Every time you die, you will respawn here. Then you will have to find a portal in this big graveyard to get back to your levels. I've also already created the whole story for me, which is pretty exciting. But that's for the sequel if I qualify. That's it for me. Bye.
Okay guys, it's now time to decide which 2 projects are going to get brutally eliminated. Joining Noah and I are Thomas Stewart.
Hi, I'm Thomas Stewart. I'm an indie game developer and YouTuber, and I'm also the developer of the cozy island builder game Bridges and Docks, which just released today.
Lemon.
Hey everybody, I'm Lemon. I'm the creator of Patch Quest, which you can get on Steam, and I'm also now working on a new game, which is sort of an ant colony simulator. You can follow my devlog on that on my YouTube channel.
And Tice.
Yo, I have my channel DualWielded, and my game in Cave Runner releases on Steam in like a week. Well, anyways, quick warning, the iconic first meeting audio mess up returns. So for this first meeting, Thomas and Lemon don't sound great. It'll be alright in the other meetings though, don't worry.
I like the concept of the game, and I think this concept concept of you have a character that's doomed to die, but then you pick up from that with the next character, but then they die and you pick up and you carry on. That concept has legs. I think you could make a proper game out of that. I think actually in almost all of these games, slow running speed is a continuous problem.
True. Other than Code Geass game, which has incredible controls and is such a joy to move around the world, really feels good.
Code Geass game, I loved it, but my only problem with it was the theme. I didn't really understand where Memento Mori came into play.
For me though, Memento Mori, a big part of it is like the fact of like remembering you're gonna die to better live. So there's that feeling of life that you're like, okay, destroying creatures, but you're creating new life and so on. It's not the best implementation of the theme, but I don't think it's completely off topic either.
I thought that his theme and concept was strong, one of the stronger ones. But for me, and this is a small thing, but it's also a huge thing, the speed at which you run is extremely slow.
I just think Bewky's game has a lot of potential, and because he has a base to work with now, and because of the type of game it is, I think he made it easy for himself to just add stuff left and right, really populate the currently not super populated world, right? Like just add more cars, more people walking around to mess with, give me a place where I can find a jetpack, or let me ride a jet ski. You know, like the possibilities are endless, because anything could work well for the game he's made.
I want to talk about Lighthoof's game, which initially didn't seem incredibly impressive to me in the devlog, but actually I had the most fun with that game. I read that was cool platforming. I like how you can grab the bones, throw them, the whole thing of the lights, you know, and the creeping death and stuff. Really cool character design.
I'm bitter about that horrible jump scare. That scared the pants off of me. I love the jump scare. I was not expecting it at all. The zombie jumps out, screams at you, some horrible noise behind it. And then you're like, oh, okay, this is this kind of game. It raised emotions in me. It made me feel afraid, made me feel like the times like, oh yeah, I totally got this. Then the virus killed me anyway.
Typically as a player, I really like games where the traversal feels good. And so I like the idea of running and jumping and sliding and grappling. I thought that was all awesome and pretty fun to play with. But yeah, it was definitely, the weapons in particular seemed to be a source of a lot of bugs.
So without further ado, we're going to announce the first developer who passes on to the semi-finals.
Yep, the first developer to pass is going to be Lixian.
Congrats, Lixian!
The next contestant to move on to the next round is Code Geass.
Code Geass, welcome.
Alright, and then the third developer to move on to the semi-finals is Dryden!
Now, guys, we have to eliminate 2 of these 3 developers here. So we've got Bewky, we've got Shorty, and we've got Strompy. Each of them made very, very different games. That's why the decision was super, super hard. So the last person to join the semi-finals is Bewky. And sadly, Strompy and Shorty are eliminated. And it really breaks my heart because these 2 games were also incredible, but we had to come to a decision.
Man, it's extremely difficult deciding which challengers to eliminate. But we must move on to the semi-finals. Bewky, Lixian, Code Geass, and Dryden have an entire whole week to improve on their game.
Whew. Round 2, baby. I'm glad my name was the first one to be said, because even though I looked cool, calm, and collected, I was actually very nervous, anxious, and extremely uncollected.
Honestly, a guy like me, a game like that, you had no choice but to move me on. I had you in the palm of my hand. Like a little baby.
I'm literally just so relieved to have made it to round 2. That was stressful. That was stressful.
I'm happy to move on to the next round. I think I'm still confident in my ability to win the challenge, although I'm kind of worried about Lixian's game.
As I feared, Code Geass did a wonderful job, and I feel like right now is the biggest threat in the competition.
Honestly, when I played the other contestants' games, I was like, okay, I'm out. It was a good run.
I do feel kind of cool that mine's the only 2D game in the semifinals, so maybe that'll be a point in my favor. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm scared.
To make things extra juicy, we threw our semi-finalists a little twist. Each would throw a new theme at their opponent, meaning that now they not only need to incorporate Memento Mori into their project, but whatever other theme their opponent cooks up as well. A whopping $10,000 are on the line here. This is some super high stakes game dev, so without further ado, onto the semi-finals, starting with Code Geass.
After the first judging phase on Sunday, I wasn't entirely sure how to continue. I had some cool mechanics, but nothing that resembles an actual game loop. After some brainstorming, I concluded that my game needs a bit of an overhaul. Instead of a wizard, you're now an astronaut and you need to upgrade your spaceship by selling creatures. I basically stole the game loop from Playmobil Pirates and put it in space. The first thing I did was to model the new character and also some spaceships. I decided to turn the original character into an NPC that operates the space buildings. Around this time we also got the twist, and my word was chaos. In case my chaotic sleep schedule this week doesn't count, I decided to implement a seed-based random terrain generator. The terrain generator took a couple tries, but eventually I settled on a system that takes small height maps and combines them into a large map by moving and rotating them. It also overlays Perlin noise on top to make the terrain even more chaotic, and finally it spawns trees, rocks and grass. Next up I made a space scene that connects planets to the trading center and the upgrade station. Originally I wanted to make it top down with a fixed camera, but I found that keeping the controls third person similar to the character feels much more intuitive. I also implemented a custom made save system to save things like the inventory and the active scene. I then got to work modeling the trading center and the upgrade station, which ended up taking a full day. The trading center allows players to sell their creatures, and it shows creatures that are in demand, so you can sell them for a much higher price than normal. Finally, I did a UI overhaul because I needed to separate the inventory and the creature creation interface. I also added minimaps so you can see where you are in space and on the planet. Additionally, I added a comic book style intro to introduce the story, and I made one of the NPCs in the trading center do a random dance every time you enter. Overall, I'm quite happy with where my game is at currently. I do still need to finish the ship upgrade system and the ending, so hopefully I'll make it to the finals. I also have a long list of other stuff I'd like to add, but first I should probably get some sleep.
Alright, the character I modeled last week was not so good, so I modeled a new one, and gave them longer arms to make it easier to vault over things. Then I spent the next couple days polishing the player controller to make the movement more predictable, and after that, Lighthoof had given me the theme of piracy, so frickin' arr, arr, am I right? Anyway, so I added a new bucket list item called Star in a Movie, where you star in the next hit film centered around, you guessed it, pirates. Your role in the movie is to steal the treasure from the pirate ship by completing a series of physics-based puzzles. And after that, I worked on a couple more bucket list items. Can we get a warm welcome for Judy Diamond? In this bucket list item, aptly named Make It Rain, you have to go to the strip club and use the bands that make Judy dance, but you better watch out, because Judy is currently throwing it back for a real one.
Sorry about that.
Basically, you have to grab the cash from the table, throw it on stage, and the task is done. Now, one of the main concerns that the judges had week 1 was that the movement was too slow and there was no sprint button. So of course, I added a sprint button and made it so you can move a little bit quicker, but I also added the Blackthornprod 3s. When you equip the BTP 3s, you get a massive speed boost and jump boost, essentially turning you into Sonic, which ended up being pretty OP in the game, so I hid them behind a large 3D platforming section where you have to climb, vault, and swing your way up a mountain. I also added other things like a new particle effect for when you get knocked out. I made the city a lot bigger. I improved the graphics a bit. And if I were to continue, these are the things I'd want to add. So I'd want to add more NPCs, quirky little guys, you know, with different stories that intertwine with one another. A Goat Simulator style point system where you get points for doing flips. And I'd also like to add a big open area with like ramps and ledges that you can use your fresh new BTP 3s on. And yeah, that's about it.
As you probably guessed, these videos are really expensive to create, so we need to know if you guys, the Blackthornprod community, absolutely love this concept so that we can produce it again. So make sure to like, subscribe, it's really a huge support. If this video reaches 50,000 likes, we'll immediately start a new game dev competition and we'll raise the stakes even further. With that said, let's get back to the semifinals.
Last week I made this dream wish list of things that I wanted to get done, and they kind of all happened, so please forgive this double shot yappuccino that I am about to power wash into this video right now. I started with this new UI that shows your lantern levels and health, and added wall climbing for some much needed verticality and a stamina system. For roguelike stuff, we need an upgrade shop. That means we gotta get a modular stat system, money, the upgrades themselves, and a shopkeeper. The shopkeeper is Old Red-Eye, and he's on your side. For profit. The coins are called Viatica, which is the Latin name for the coins you bury with the dead. Red-Eye also does the tutorial. So I designed 22 new upgrades, wrote some chill music for the shop, and things were feeling pretty good. Then I got my twist. Bewky decided to give my little Victorian crypt game the word computer. It's okay, okay, man, we're cool. Once the panic stopped, I started thinking. My bosses are all souls who craved immortality but failed, and I already wanted a scientist. So I remembered Ada Lovelace, an 1800s mathematician credited with being the first computer programmer. Perfect. So Augusta was born, a character who wanted to create the infinite machine, but she was robbed of credit and forgotten. This area is her infinite machine, complete with these gear-headed demons that just really won't quit. With that sorted, I needed level design, and fast. I decided to go for procedural generation, which was terrifying since I'd never done that. But long story short, it happened, and the algorithm's kinda cool. Finally, I needed a UI for helping you review what power-ups you have. The smaller upgrades come as prayer beads and get strung together as you gain them. The bigger ones are relics, and you can just mouse over to see what they do. There are some hilariously broken builds possible already, and I'm just getting started. Last, I wanted some more music for this new area. In a fever dream between the hours of 2 and 4 a.m. last night, I wrote these 2 piano pieces for the exploration and boss fight. If I get to go on, there will be more bosses, more enemies, more areas, and more relics that will be even more unhinged than I am right now.
I started this week by adding a couple of mechanics to the player and doing some polish. So, added running and reloading, I added a pause button, I replaced the infection bar with a number, I added feedback when the infection goes up and feedback when you use the syringe. The enemy now has a delay on its attack, so now it won't just slap you until tomorrow, and added a camera shake when you get attacked. And then the twist happened.
So my word for you is birds, as in the animals.
Birds. So I made Birdman. No, wait, that already exists. Man-bird. Also, while I was working on the texture for this lovely creature, I accidentally made the regular enemy look even worse. I reworked the entire level so it's not just a bunch of senseless corridors, modeled a handful of new props, added a new keycard reader and multiple keycards, and a new goal for this demo. The judges probably noticed the lack of red vials in this demo, and the recipes list is also a little different. With all this, I just didn't have time to create the last recipe. So here are all the promises that I probably can't keep if I make it to the next round. Adding the last recipe, that will be my top priority. A map, because without it the level layout can get a little confusing. Also in this demo, you're just grabbing keycards for progress, and it would be nice to have puzzles, or at least a puzzle to break the monotony of just grabbing keycards. Definitely a new gun this time, polish the environment and add some more lore. And again, this game is really asking for Resident Evil style inventory, but I'm not gonna lie, I've never made one, and it will probably take me the entire week to make that, so if I can somehow manage to do that, I will, but no promises on that one.
Codier's game. I thought it was really interesting that he changed the theme so drastically to space, but I thought that it worked really well with how he was implementing his gameplay. I liked what he did with the space travel. I liked what he did with the random generation of the planets.
With the change in his theme, I think the link to Memento Mori was even weaker than it was last week. Like, I think he's going in an interesting direction with his game, but I didn't see the link to Memento Mori anymore.
I really like the aesthetic of the game, simple, to the point, the theme is there. I like the new boss, the random generation. I really like the game.
I love the atmosphere, the indie feel, and also how it plays. Really fun.
I also think his implementation of the new computer theme was very, very well done. Easily the hardest second theme, I'd say, but he absolutely nailed it. I also like how it's a roguelite now, though the random level generation definitely isn't perfect. There were moments where I simply got stuck. Not because I was bad at the game, but it was physically impossible. I swear, it was the game, not me.
I liked what Bewky added to the game. I liked the pirate. I liked the twist that he added in, and I liked the sprint mechanic. It was a lot more enjoyable to run around and play with the ragdoll physics, you know, now that I wasn't going 2 miles per hour.
Bewky's game, I really liked it. Really cool additions, but they were a little bit hidden, I feel. Some of them were hard to find. I would have liked to see more, more life in the town. More NPCs, characters, cars moving around, more of that.
Or just a smaller town, so the elements that are in the game are more condensed, and therefore you bump into more of them.
Lixian's bird enemies were very cool. I like that whole introduction scene. Also, still, atmosphere-wise, it's just amazing overall, let's be real now. I was a bit disappointed that the combat was still the bare minimum though. Originally I thought you were just meant to get hit with every fight, as you're provided with medkits after every encounter, but I learned that you can dodge their attacks by sprinting at the right moment. Even with that in mind though, it's still like, you know, the combat isn't amazing or anything.
It's like a philosophical question. There's so many things that you can grade these games on, and it just depends on what we want to emphasize.
We've come to a decision. Super hard. There was a short moment where we were like, is there a world where we just keep all 4 games for the final round? We decided that was a very bad idea for the video.
So the first game to go through is Dryden's game Catacombs.
Thank you.
We all felt that it was very well put together and well polished on multiple levels. It was difficult to really point out any one part of the game that fell flat enough to criticize it too harshly.
There's 3 more developers, Bewky, Cordier, Lixian. All 3 games were so different, which made it so hard to come to a final decision. But in the end, we did. And the second finalist of this Blackthornprod game of competition is Lixian.
Thank you.
We've arrived at the finals. Dryden versus Lixian. Who will win $10,000? Place your bets.
As usual, they have 1 week to make progress on their game. Let's start with Dryden.
First of all, we have a new title, Disinherited. In the story of the game, you play as Samuel, a young poet and the son of a banking mogul. His father, Charles Baudelaire, has heard of a relic that can grant eternal life and descended into the catacombs to find it. After a month, he was pronounced dead. At the will reading, we find that Charles has cut Samuel out of the will and left everything to his cat, saying that Samuel has wasted his 18 years of life and is unworthy to inherit the fortune. Samuel vows his revenge by saying that he's going to make everything of his life and descends into the catacombs after his father to claim the relic that his father could not. No spoilers, but when I release this game, which is officially going to happen by the way, the father and the cat might be making an appearance. So here's what I added this week. I started by adding a climbing up animation, a dodge roll, and the quality of life platforming things like a jump buffer and coyote time. Then I got to work on the second boss. Augusta is pretty humanized and empathetic, so I wanted to reinforce the horror again with Silas the Dolorous. Silas leads a cult that worships pain on the grounds that pain seems to extend time and therefore the perceived length of one's life. His monks walk around hitting themselves in the head and throw planks at you. Next, I got my twist thrown back at me. Piracy. My stretch goal was already to add another boss, so I created Eudor, the Imperious. In life, he was a monster until he stole a relic that could grant eternal life, with the fine print that a maelstrom would drag his ship into death's domain. I also wanted to push the throw and catch mechanic further, so I added a 5-shot cannon that you can yoink off these pirate enemies. It's really too fun. And his unique relic is a hook that lets you, accidentally, get items for free from the shop. Hopefully that's enough piracy to qualify. I also wanted to give the player more opportunities for choice. So in the shop, there's now a bead trader. You give him 2 beads, he gives you one that matches one of yours. It helps out with planning your build. And to reinforce the Memento Mori theme a bit more, there's now this memento system that lets you select one of 3 items that you had in your last run at the start of your next run. It's getting late now, so my plan is to just make a bunch of music and hope that I can get as much of it as I can into the game. Wish me luck!
Okay, the first thing I did was add the mythical last recipe. The Dark Syringe. It's a syringe that heals 100% of the infection, and unlike others, as soon as you interact with it, it's automatically used. Once used, you can choose from a list of abilities that unlock from the top down. Abilities like reducing the infection rate, making the syringes reduce more infection when used, or make the enemies do less damage, among a few others. The second thing I did was adding the shotgun. I was actually able to program bullet spreading, so making sure the enemy is close is key, and I think it turned out really powerful. I did some tweaking on floor A, and now the elevator actually has buttons for you to go to different floors, which means I made an entire new floor. Floor B. I made these water tube things for the man bird, and I even made a jump scare with it. Then came the twist, which was my previous twist to Codir, which was chaos. Not even a problem. I added a subfloor to floor B called floor B2, which you go by accessing this hatch. Inside is a very long corridor that opens up to this large room with a pool in the middle. I'm sure nothing bad's gonna happen. Good jump scare, but maybe not chaotic enough. How about this? There are now also some checkpoints throughout the game, so you don't have to start over if you die. Which means I had to make a save system to make sure all the items and triggers don't appear or re-trigger when you die or when you go back and forth between rooms. This took a very long time. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to add maps, the puzzle, and lore, but I still think these new additions are pretty spooky. At least I hope so.
Oh my...
It's a super difficult decision. They're both really, really good, and they took the theme in really interesting directions.
Uh-oh, I'm in a dead end. This is really bad. Okay. That actually seems really good. I'm gonna give you this and this, and then he's gonna give me a jump lead.
For both games, I was surprised by the scope. They kind of just kept going and they started introducing new stuff. Shark? Hell no, man. I got thalassophobia, galleophobia, aquaphobia. Gimbo, you want to play this next part for me? Oh! This is so cool. And then for Dryden, I thought it was really cool how there were multiple properly functioning bosses that all feel unique.
We'll be revealing our votes one by one, starting with me and going through it. Now there's a twist. There's not only 5 judges here, but we also included the Blackthornprod community and our Game Dev Rocket students to vote on their favorite creation. So like where each judge has got basically a weight of 1 vote power. The community, they voted on their favorite game and they had a power of 2, meaning that in total there's 7 votes, so there can't be a draw. I'm going to start. My vote goes to Dryden's game, Disinherited. I also feel that Dryden incorporated the theme Memento Mori the best, although you guys both did an incredible job, especially like the 3rd theme. But yeah, that's why there's more.
The games are so different, like they are completely different. Genre-wise, gameplay-wise, everything is so different. Feels like we're comparing apples to oranges, right? After discussing for a while, my vote goes to Lixian.
My vote went to the game that drew me in with its depth of systems, items, characters, replayability, and charm. So my vote is cast for Dryden's game, Disinherited.
I think both your games are great and both have a lot of potential to be expanded further. In the end, my vote is going to Lixian.
There's one more judge here, it's Liam. So my vote goes to Dryden's game. We're at 3 for Disinherited, 2 for Immune Hearts. But there's the community, and they've got a weight of 2. So the votes based on the community, 70, 30%. And the 70%, and the winner of the second Blackthornprod competition goes to Lixian, who made Immune Hearts. Congrats, Lixian.
Thank you. Oh my god, my heart.
You're both ending up in 3 weeks with a Steam game, basically, or like really impressive work, such learning experience.
I was thinking maybe having, the full Steam release.
How about you, Dryden? What's your plan for the game?
Well, I definitely want to release it. I've kind of fallen in love with the concept, and I want to keep developing it because there's so much that I didn't get to put in that I wanted to. So yeah, I'm definitely committed to a full Steam release, and I'm gonna work as hard as I can to get there.
And that marks the end of the second Blackthornprod Game Dev competition. What an honor to host such an event with these incredible game developers. Links to the work of all the judges and competitors can be found in the description, so go and show them some love. We have just gotten started, guys. We aim to create even more ambitious, high-stakes game dev competitions, so make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. When we reach 1 million subscribers, we'll host an enormous game dev competition set in a medieval castle. We'll invite our judges and challengers at the actual location and host one of the most epic, dramatic competitions you've ever seen. So hit subscribe and start spreading the word if you also want to see an inspiring Game Dev TV reality show. Thanks for watching, stay tuned, incredible things are going to come. Cheers.